Hello and welcome everyone to this week's market update with the Sultan of Sonar. I am your host, Zach Strickland, and I'll be walking you through a little recap of what we've seen in the freight markets this past week using our Sonar platform. So, without much more delay, let's get right to it. So, as we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, this is the time of year where freight starts to slow down a little bit. People take a quick reprieve from the late Q2 push of shipping and also freight delivery. They take a little time off for the 4th of July. So that's not too unusual. We've covered that. So what we're seeing now actually is it continue to slow down a little bit. So what I've got in front of you is the outbound tender rejection index weekly change, one of our new tickers that we've implemented on Sonar here that tells you week over week what the percentage change was. And if you missed out on any of that explanation, be sure to check out any of the latest market recap videos in the last week or so, or even the webinars on the FreightWaves.com/Sonar website. So give a little recap. Tender rejection indexes, they are basically where the carriers are turning down freight as a percentage of the loads offered. And what we have here is the measure of the absolute percentage change. So if last week we were sitting at 25% load rejections, this week we're sitting at 28% load rejections. That would be a 3% weekly change. So this number up here would say 3 if you went from 25 to 3 week over week on this day last week. So I've got a few markets pulled up right here. The main one, of course, is the United States. The United States continues to drop at a pretty quick clip, going down negative 2.53% week over week. And then I have Atlanta and Chicago here in the green and blue. And they're dropping faster than the market in general. And then I found an interesting one here. Newark is actually... They're actually increasing, which again, not terribly surprising, but again, when you're looking at these rejection indices, you want to really make sure that you're looking at that, how it compares to the rest of the market. That's what the stock market does. You're always kind of judged with what the bigger market patterns are doing. So again, a little tidbit to those brokers and carriers and out there, like out in the New York area, the Newark, New Jersey market, you might have some opportunities out there. So I'm going to move on from this and kind of still address what we have going on in the big picture. So the weekly change, it's going down, and I'll pull up the otri.usa just to give you an idea of what that actually means. So late June, everybody's turning down freight because there's just no capacity. Now, as we get into the holiday, not as much freight out there. Carriers are more willing to accept their loads. Capacity seems to be returning to the market a little bit, pulling off the spot market somewhat. Again, not a tremendous amount, but it is at least enough to make me wonder, well, is this going to be a long-term pattern? Well, you see here in April, the market kind of dropped off and it stabilized throughout the month of April after the contracts were implemented around April 1st and throughout March. So carriers were more willing to accept those loads because they just got a big rate increase. Now, as the summer volumes started kicking in, as they do in May and then June, capacity dried up a good bit. Now we're seeing more stabilization, but it's still not as stable as it was in early May, late April, although we are moving that direction. So last week I hit on a little bit about the retail markets. So we've just added some more economic indicators to the Sonar platform. One of them is called the retail sales and retail sales year over year economic indicators. So several government bureaus keep track of these macroeconomic indicators, and we've added a few that we think are more pertinent to freight markets. This one right here is retail sales. I don't think you have to make a big leap in logic to understand what retail does to freight markets. Now, obviously, it's not the entire freight market, but it is a solid segment to look at when you're looking at overall freight patterns, which we tend to do here, because what we're trying to do is figure out what's happening in the broader market. Well, one of our writers actually just covered this in FreightWaves.com if you want to look at this in more detail. The retail sales is basically how much in dollars, in millions of dollars actually, that the retail sector is reporting as having sales. Now that excludes taxes and various other things, but it is looking quite strong, as you see here on this chart. So in June, they just reported that last year they were 6.45% lower than they are this year in June. So that's a big jump. Again, check out FreightWaves.com to see what that actually means in the more granular level. But right now, the economy just isn't slowing down. So looking forward, I still don't think that we're in this massive capacity, like a lot of capacity is returning to the market sector. I believe that it's still a heated economy, a heated market. Obviously, with the Trump trade talks, things are getting a little bit squirrely there. And speaking of that, let's look at the Freightos index this week, and we'll see that, what do you know, the container prices were still elevated. We're still not certain that this means that we've got a lot of volume coming in on the ports. I know capacity is tight at the ports right now, as it typically is, but this looks to be still more of an indication of just a carrier behavior than it is a shipper behavior at the moment, although we did get reports of some panic shipping happening prior to the tariff implementations. So again, that being said, the market is cooling off. Shippers, it's your time right now to kind of put some freight out there if you want to get in front of some things and make sure that if the market does take another turn back north, you're ready for it. So take advantage. And until next week, I am the Sultan of Sonar, signing off. Thank you.